Joining us now is Josh Birenbaum. He's the Deputy Director of Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Center on Economic and Financial Power. Josh, welcome to you. So you co-authored a piece in the New York Post using TikTok's surveillance risk as an example of the threat to American users. You cited that as the tip of the iceberg. So we heard today testimony, everything from farmland to fentanyl. Can you talk about what you see as China's biggest threats to the United States?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. The Chinese threat really comes on multiple fronts, and that's one of the things that makes it so incredibly dangerous. The fentanyl threat is leading among that. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying, and that's the direct result of the practice of selling precursors by the Chinese government-fueled companies and by government-fueled money laundering services that the Chinese government is enabling. In addition, the surveillance that China conducts not only on its own citizens, but on citizens all over the world is another pressing threat. And that's what we raised in the TikTok article, because TikTok is a true threat because it collects so much data, but it's only one of many companies. Under the Chinese law called the National Intelligence Law, Chinese companies are obligated to turn over data they collect to the Chinese Communist Party if the party demands it. We have no idea what data is being collected and what steps, if any, Chinese companies are taking to protect Americans' sensitive and private information.
President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping discussed nuclear arms control when they met last fall. Do we put too much emphasis on military power when debating Chinese adversarial influence in the 21st century?
That's an excellent question. They unquestionably have a military we should be taking very seriously. They have the largest Navy in the world, and that they've shown a tendency towards belligerence towards their neighbors in the South China Sea and obviously against Taiwan. So the military engagement should not be discounted. But the economic levers of power that they're able to push around the world through the Belt and Road Initiative and here at home is in some ways an even bigger crisis. Now, in America's favor, the Chinese economy is weak and weakening, and we should take the levers of power that we have over their economy and utilize them to end the fentanyl crisis, and utilize them to stop China from dumping cheap goods on our markets and otherwise impacting the global economy in ways that are beneficial towards corruption and bad for American capitalism and democracy.
Josh, you just mentioned the Chinese economy. There's a lot of talk about the potential of recession and, of course, high inflation here in the United States. Some analysts fear restricting Chinese ownership of farmland and other moves could further strain relations and deepen the trade war. Are those concerns misplaced?
The trade war is not yet, the first shots of the trade war have not yet been fired, and that's what we're really going to see coming next. China is in such poor economic shape that they're going to try to export their way out of the crisis. And that means that a flood of cheap Chinese goods is going to be coming to America, to Europe, and all over the world. In some ways, that's good for our inflation concerns. It lowers the price of goods. But it also means that they're going to be impeding domestic capacity here in the U.S. and taking American jobs in the process. So we need to be aware of that. Chinese farmland and the ways in which China has engaged economically in the U.S. economy is also critically important, but that's more of a security concern than anything else. We need to make sure that the investments that China is making in the U.S. do not impact U.S. national security, and we need to be very careful that our farmland in particular and other critical resources and commodities are controlled by U.S. and allied friends who can help us ensure that we are secure.
Josh Birenbaum with Foundation for Defense of Democracies, thank you so much for being with us today and for your insights.
Thanks for having me.